Snowflakes drifted through the air, blanketing the streets of New York City in silence, muffling the usual chaos. People hurried past, heads down, wrapped tightly in coats and scarves. No one noticed the old man huddled near the corner of Fifth and Main, his thin coat no match for the biting cold. A piece of cardboard lay across his lap with a simple message scrawled in fading marker, "Just hungry, not hopeless." Most avoided eye contact, some looked away entirely. Samantha, a nurse in her early 30s, had just finished a grueling 12-hour shift. Her legs ached, her mind foggy, but something made her pause as she passed the man. She reached for her wallet, then stopped. Instead of tossing a few bills and moving on like everyone else, she slowly knelt beside him. The city swirled around them, indifferent, loud, but in that moment, a bubble of quiet formed. "What's your name?" she asked softly, her voice cutting through the cold. The man turned his tired eyes to her, startled but grateful. "Thomas," he replied with a faint smile. His voice was raspy, worn like his clothes, yet there was a trace of warmth in it. Samantha smiled back, not out of pity, but recognition. She didn't see a beggar, she saw a person, a story, a soul. In that small gesture of sitting down beside him, of asking his name, something intangible passed between them, a reminder that even in a city of millions, one act of love could still matter. They sat side by side on the cold pavement until Samantha broke the silence. "There's a diner around the corner," she said. "Come with me." "My treat." Thomas hesitated, his pride flickering in his eyes, but the chill and her sincerity eventually won. Inside the warm glow of the tiny diner, the world seemed to soften. Steam rose from coffee mugs, and the hum of conversations filled the space like a lullaby. Thomas cupped the warm mug in his hands like it was treasure. Samantha ordered eggs and toast for both of them. As they ate, she listened, really listened. As Thomas began to speak. He used to be a music teacher, once married to the love of his life. But after she passed, the grief became unbearable. He lost his rhythm. He stopped showing up for work. The world kept moving, but he had stopped. Samantha nodded, not with sympathy, but with understanding. Her father, a veteran, had fought a similar silent battle after the war. She knew the pain of watching someone slowly fade in front of you. That's what made her sit down earlier, it was a feeling she recognized, even in a stranger. "You're not invisible," she said softly, her voice steady. "Not to me." Thomas looked at her for a long moment. No one had spoken to him like that in years, not as a problem to fix, or a mistake to ignore, but as a man. And in that booth, over eggs and coffee, something quietly began to shift. In the days that followed, Samantha kept coming back. Some evenings she brought warm food, other times just conversation. Slowly, Thomas began to open up more. About the concerts he once conducted, the children he taught, the old upright piano that used to sit in his living room. There was a light in his eyes now, faint but growing. One night, Samantha handed him a worn flyer from a community center a few blocks away. "They're looking for volunteers to help with after-school music programs," she said gently. Thomas looked at her, disbelief and fear flickering across his face. "I haven't touched a piano in years," he whispered. "Maybe it's time," she replied. With her encouragement, Thomas went. His hands trembled as he sat down at the piano in the quiet, echoing hall. He closed his eyes and placed his fingers on the keys. Slowly, hesitantly, the first notes of Clair de Lune filled the room, fragile, like memory. A few staff members paused to listen. So did a teenage boy loitering near the back, his hoodie pulled tight, face guarded. After the music stopped, the boy approached. "That was cool," he said, almost shy. "Can you show me how to play something like that?" Thomas blinked. For a second, he looked unsure. But then, with a smile that hadn't been there in years, he nodded. "Yeah," he said. "I can do that." In that moment, the music he thought he had lost forever came back, not just through his fingers, but in the spark it lit in someone else. Months passed, and the man once forgotten on the street corner was now known as Mr. Thomas at the community center. He came in 3 days a week, clean-shaven, a little more confident with each visit. His students, mostly teenagers who wandered in out of boredom, began staying late just to hear him play, to ask questions, to learn. They didn't care that his clothes weren't new or that his fingers sometimes fumbled over the keys. They listened because he saw them, and because his music spoke what words couldn't. One afternoon, the center hosted a small recital. Folding chairs lined the room, filled with parents, staff, and a few curious passers-by. Samantha sat near the back, smiling quietly as one of Thomas's students, a shy boy named Luis, stepped up to the piano. He played a simple melody Thomas had taught him, each note full of effort and heart. When the piece ended, Luis stood and faced the crowd. "Mr. Thomas didn't just teach me how to play," he said nervously. "He taught me how to believe in myself." Applause filled the room, but Thomas didn't move. His eyes welled up, and he glanced at Samantha, who had tears in hers too. Afterward, as people mingled, Luis hugged Thomas tightly. "Thanks for not giving up on me," he whispered. Thomas could barely respond, his voice caught in his throat. But in that moment, he understood something powerful. He hadn't just rebuilt his own life. He had started rebuilding others. And all of it had started with a simple act of kindness. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft golden light over the same New York City street where it all began. But now, Thomas stood on that corner not as a man in need, but as someone who had found purpose again. Dressed in a neat coat and scarf, he held 2 coffees in his hands. He spotted a young man curled up by a bench, shivering, eyes distant, the same look Thomas had worn not so long ago. Quietly, he approached, offering one of the warm cups. The man looked up, startled, unsure. Thomas gave a gentle smile. "No strings. Just thought you could use this." The man hesitated, then accepted the coffee with trembling hands. "Thank you," he whispered, barely audible. Thomas sat beside him, just like Samantha once had. "What's your name?" he asked. Across the street, unnoticed, Samantha watched from a cafe window, her heart full. She didn't need to intervene anymore. Thomas had become what she once was to him, a spark of hope in someone's darkest hour. As the camera of life panned out, the city buzzed around them, but in this small moment of connection, time seemed to slow. One act of love had sparked a ripple, now touching someone new. The world hadn't changed overnight, but for one man, and now another, everything was different. A touch of love had truly created a lifetime of change.